A very warm welcome back to your feel-good breakfast show. We are live, large and in charge, baby. This is Expresso. Now, it's a very important week that we are observing in South Africa. The 24th to the 28th of June marks National Drug Awareness Week. And in South Africa, we have one of the biggest drug addiction problems in the world, with 7% of South Africans abusing narcotics of some kind, according to the 2014 UN World Drug Report. Now, the shocking statistic is the fact that the average age of experimentation sits at about 12 years old, and that age is decreasing, something of a major concern.
That is a major concern. Dr. Darren, welcome back, man. Lovely to have you in studio. Very, very heavy topic as well. And with that fact, the average age, 12 years old, starting to experiment, that is just crazy, man.
Not even in high school yet.
It makes me shudder to think, you know, as a parent as well with my two boys. But let's start at the beginning. How exactly does addiction work?
Yeah, so basically, the human brain is wired in a way where we have different pathways with neurotransmitters that drive behavior. And just like you reward a dog with a treat, basically he gets off on the treat like a bit of biltong or whatever, so too the human brain, when given reward, whether it be positive feedback and positive reinforcement, whether it be something like sensory stimulation from gambling, like the bright lights, the loud noise, etc., etc. That recognition that releases a surge of a neurotransmitter, dopamine, in the brain, and we become so addicted to actually the feeling of pleasure and happiness that comes from that dopamine that we then lose our sense of reason. So the modern brain, the frontal lobe, that tells you to pull up the handbrake, you're gambling away your pension, or the amount of money you're spending on recreational drugs like cocaine, for example, are stealing from your children's education. That sense of reason and the frontal lobe handbrake becomes secondary and ignored to the sense of pleasure that you're getting from whatever the stimulus is, whether it be nicotine, alcohol, or recreational drugs.
Yeah, and though today we are highlighting drug addiction specifically, addiction doesn't necessarily only revolve around stimulants.
No. What people don't know is you get uppers and you get downers. So you'll speak about your cocaine, your tic. Those are the things that stimulate, the amphetamines, that stimulate your nervous system. They make you alert, buzz, they give you energy in an excessive way. Not forgetting that your own body manufactures its own neurotransmitters that give you alertness, awareness, and make you feel good itself, called endogenous neurotransmitters. These are the synthetic ones that are manufactured that people are taking, and you can't control the amount, you can't control the side effects, and obviously the addiction, structural changes in the brain that occur. The downers, on the other hand, are the things that slow you down, relax you, and space you out. Those are often taken for people to just escape the rat race, you know, that urgency, that absolute state of panic almost, and mania, to calm people down. Those are like your benzodiazepines, your barbiturates, and even alcohol is a suppressant, not a stimulant.
Yeah.
Anxiety is often masked by people taking something to calm them down so that they can act normal socially.
Sure, there's definitely a lot to talk about. I want to get into the question about addictive personalities. Is that a thing? Is that a real thing? So we're going to catch up with Dr. Darren just in a couple of minutes just to unpack that a little bit further this week. But right now, let's play some games, man. Graham has been very excited the whole morning. It's Street Fighter, baby.
Oh, my word.
Speaking about it.
All right, well, there was a part of my life when I was addicted to Street Fighter.
Dude.
I would spend so many 50-cent coins trying to clock the game.
The arcades, man. You have to get there.
But listen, today, more seriously, that we are talking about drug addiction, as it is Drug Addiction Awareness Week here in South Africa, and Dr. Darren Green is here. So thankful to have you in here and have your insights, sir.
Absolutely. And a little bit earlier on, you know, I wanted to ask you the question about types of personalities. Is there something like an addictive personality, or is this just something that people use as an excuse to use narcotics or drugs?
No, there certainly are definitely personality types. They even get personality disorders that are more geared towards abuse and use of drugs and addictions of all sorts, whether it be alcohol or recreational drugs. What's more important is sensory profiling. So sensory integration is something important. You get people that are thrill seekers. You get people that love the stimulation of bright lights, you know, really loud sounds, music, pumping, that kind of thing. Those are what they call thrill seekers or sensory seekers. Often your personality types that are very fun and outgoing and social, head of the party, those kind of people, they really find they need something to keep them going. They want that. Other people obviously feel, on the other hand, that they have a dull personality where An introvert, for example, or an anxious individual might want something to help them relax and to come out. Not all introverts are anxious. That's something that's also a fallacy. So people need to understand that the profiling certainly plays a very important role in who becomes addicted. No one willfully becomes addicted to anything. No one starts their first alcoholic drink thinking, I want to become an addict. No one starts their first pill, your headache tablet with codeine in it, thinking, I want to become addicted. And that's what people need to understand. It's something that happens because your voluntary control mechanisms of your voice of reason are overpowered by the surge of neurotransmitter activity from the reward and reinforcement of your behavior and compulsion in a specific thing.
Is that the same reason why kids now are taking this drug called nyaupe, which is a mixture of ARVs and rat poison and soap powder, things that you would never ever think of ingesting, even lesser than that, smoking, because they all sound so disgusting. Why would one go to the lengths of, is it just a experimentation that happens because of peer pressure, and then before you know it, the stimulants or the downers in that particular drug, that's what gets you addicted because of the sensation?
For sure. So if you think about different families, one child will become a drug addict, one won't. Why? What's the difference? Same parents, same scenario, same community. It's not about that. It's often about the gene expression. It's also about the personality type. It's also about their natural thrill-seeking behavior. The problem, and why 12 years old is the average age that we were discussing of drug experimentation and drug addiction, is because children aren't stimulated. Whose responsibility is it to stimulate a child? Is it the school? Is it the parents? Is it the community? And that responsibility keeps shifting. So you look then for things to keep yourself busy, to stimulate your mind, to look at something that's exciting and enticing. There's no communication, connection, parenting, community structures. All that plays a role in why our children are looking elsewhere for something to give them thrills. And typically with nyaupe, for example, that's got soap and soap detergent in it, rat X poison. They're smoking and snorting ARVs, which are supposed to be used for the treatment of HIV. And that then leads to a whole lot of mixed bag of side effects, because there aren't any drug trials, obviously, that are done on that as a formulation.
I tell you what, Dr. Green, we'll take a quick little break and we'll ask you to feed your questions through to us on Twitter at Expresso Show. And of course, use our hashtag Expresso Show as well. We'll try and answer those as many of them as we can right after this.
Welcome back. You're tuning into your Feel Good Breakfast Show right here on SABC3. We are talking about a very, very serious topic in a health discussion this morning with Dr. Darren Green. We're talking about substance abuse. Now, the 24th or the 28th of June marks National Drug Awareness Week, and a shocking statistic to come out of this week is that the average age of drug experimentation is 12 years old. And Dr. Darren, I actually can't, I shake. It scares me being a parent as well, just in terms of, the future and what my boys will be exposed to in the future. But let's talk about the dangers of a 12-year-old experimenting with drugs for the very first time. I mean, what medically? I mean, there must be...
So young people, they don't know, obviously, what's in it. They go on what their friends say. So peer pressure and what the gang says. Oh, I felt good. I could party the whole night with that. Wow. That helped me concentrate. Or that, I did so well, I could concentrate on my studies for a full 16 hours without stopping. Meanwhile, you don't realize that they're smoking resins and rat poison and vim, basically, in a concoction. So, the problem is they aren't aware of what kills you in terms of medical side effects. And the big ones are heart rhythm disturbances, for example. The liver, from the toxicology side of things, is also affected. And then you get a lot of gastric side effects, obviously, as well, from inflammation through to diarrhea, abdominal cramps, and then notwithstanding, obviously, the great structural changes in the brain that can sometimes become permanent and irreversible.
Yeah. And, in 2014, the United Nations World Drug Report stated that 1 in every 14 South Africans were using drugs on a regular basis. It might not sound like a lot, but when you consider 57 million people in the country, that amounts to some 3.9 million regular drug users. And then you not only think of the knock-on effect on the economy with all of the health issues that are associated with that, but the families that are affected by that.
The families and the sense of community. I mean, it's not just, as I say, recreational drugs. There are other things involved as well. Remember that in order to understand why people become addicted, we need to look at behaviors in communities and understand how our thought processes are driven in communities as to why we need to look for something more out there. What are we lacking, at its core? And I think we need to honestly take ownership of that problem. And when I say we, I mean everybody, no matter what your class. Drug addiction doesn't choose rich people. Cocaine is just one drug that costs a lot of money, but they're drugs like Nyopa, like Wunga, like so many others that are just as addictive and potent with devastating effects on people's lives.
Oh, all right, we're going to take a little break from that. And as I said, please feed your questions through to us on Twitter. We'll have a look at hashtag Expresso Show if you have any questions related to National Drug Awareness Week, which is what we're talking about right now.
All right, well, it is Drug Awareness Week here in South Africa, with drug addiction being one of the biggest problems that face South Africans. Around 3.9 million people in South Africa has got some sort of drug addiction, which is very, very scary. We have Dr. Darren Green in the studio to discuss this very serious topic this morning.
Yeah, we had a great question come in on Facebook from Lance Witboy here, who says, can the doctor please discuss the situation on marijuana or cannabis? They say that it's only a herb, and some say that it's a gateway drug to harder drug. But is that true? And is cannabis an original drug like tik and meth? And is cannabis a medication to some people around the world?
Of course. So he touches on so many aspects of cannabis, otherwise known as dacha, zol to so many other people and so forth. And what people must understand is that it's a plant. It occurs naturally. And you also need to understand that cannabis doesn't only contain one active part or substance in it, like amphetamine and methamphetamines and tik do. What you need to understand is that certain parts of cannabis are involved with what they call the psychotropic part of what happens in the brain. In other words, the hallucinations, the visual things that you see, etc. Whereas the other, you get THC obviously and the cannabinoid, which is the derivatives basically. The other part of cannabis is involved with decreasing nausea and pain control, for example, for medical use that we use in cancer patients, etc. Obviously, that's still in the process, where legislation has been passed, and it's not obviously law at the moment. So people are getting into that at the moment. But the use of cannabis as a recreational drug is something certainly that we see often unmasking underlying psychiatric disorders. People that didn't know they had bipolar or mood disorders, for example, before they used any form of recreational drug like cannabis. Obviously, it wasn't apparent, and often that changes some of the neurotransmitters and structural events in the brain that unmask underlying pathology. And that's where we should park that for now. I think time is
yeah. Just one question before we wrap up. We've been talking about it is Drug Awareness Week, but for maybe friends that you know, for parents out there, what are some of the warning signs to look out for, especially with, the average age of drug experimentation is 12 years old? I mean, what should we be looking out for?
Yeah, so remember the two R's in any form of drug addiction are rewarding and then reinforcement. So your children might have dramatic changes in their mood in terms of going from extremely happy, excited, tolerating life, coping, to really, really big downers where, for example, they have emotional and psychological withdrawal from the drug. They could also have physical withdrawal, which are things like the tremors, the abdominal cramps and so forth that can't be explained in terms of other common medical ailments. And certainly something that you'll need to do, obviously, is make sure that you're a present parent and figure to notice these changes.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, to all our young ones out there, our young brothers and sisters, be aware that it's not worth it, that temporary thrill or the stimulus that you might get from it. It's really not worth sacrificing your entire future for, because once you're hooked on these things, it's sometimes nearly impossible to get back.
To get off,
So make sure that you get yourself around the right friends and the right kind of people that stimulate your brain in the right kind of way. And we do have a helpline number, right, that people can call, that 0800 number.
Yes, the helpline number there is 0800 12 13 14, so very easy to remember, 0800 12 13 14, if you yourself may be battling, or maybe you know of someone battling with a drug addiction.
Dr. Green, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. An incredibly interesting and helpful conversation this morning. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, should we name Beyonce's babies? We're going to answer that very important question. And then a real-life superhuman Arctic swimmer, Ryan Stromwood, is in the house to talk about his latest endeavors. We'll see you in a sec.